Hi, I'm Renee Sweers, a human sciences specialist in the area of nutrition and wellness. And with me,
I'm Caitlin Murphy, and I'm an Iowa State Dietetic Intern.
all right, well, I'm glad you're here with me, Caitlin, and what we are going to do is we are going to talk a little bit about summer food safety. That season's upon us. So, Caitlin, looks like we're getting ready for a picnic here.
Correct.
All right, so what's one important thing? Like, what's kind of a big concept that people need to think about getting ready for a summer picnic?
Clean. Make sure your hands are clean, make sure your utensils are clean, make sure everything that you do before you leave is clean.
Excellent. All right. And then probably also in line with that is bring things along at the picnic so you can keep things clean at the picnic as well, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We want everything to be clean.
Yeah, so that's going to take some planning ahead on our part, right?
Right.
Okay. So we've got clean. What else do people need to think about?
Separate. We want everything to have its own separate container. We want everything to have its own separate baggie. Everything needs to be separate because we want to make sure there's no cross-contamination.
Okay, so you've got a lot of foods out here. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more, maybe with some of these foods?
Right, okay, so as you can see, we have our chopped vegetables in the front here. The tomato and the lettuce are in its own separate container. Doesn't have to be, but we like to keep it separate just to show that we want everything to be separated.
Okay.
So we want those to be also in a sealable container so their juices don't leak and get all over everything else in the coolers. Then we want to make sure that all of our meats are in its own bag, separate from everything else. So as you can see, we have our hamburger meat in its own separate bag. Make sure it's resealable so it doesn't leak onto everything else.
Okay, great. And then you have over here a lot of what I would call ready-to-eat foods, right?
Right. We want those to also be separate and in its own separate cooler as well from the meats so that they don't get cross-contaminated as well.
So is that why you have the two coolers then?
Correct.
Okay.
So we want all the ready-to-eat food items like your vegetables and your cold salads to be in its separate cooler from the meats.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and pack these up for you so you can pack those. So Caitlin, I noticed, just as we're doing this, I noticed that you are using salads that looks like were purchased pre-made, right?
Right.
So what if people were going to make these salads from scratch, make them in their own kitchen? Are there any food safety considerations with that are different?
We just want to make sure that everybody comes prepared. Make sure you get that salad temperature to 41 degrees or refrigerator temperature before you leave the house. So when it sits out in the hot sun, it can be stable enough to eat.
Oh, okay. So when you say that, then I'm thinking that best practice then is to make those salads the day before?
Yeah, that
Not
would be
right
good.
before you're going on
No.
the picnic, because then they actually might not be fully chilled down to 40 degrees or below. Excellent.
Right.
Okay, that totally makes sense. So I'll give you the ground beef, and I'm gathering you're going to put that in the other cooler.
Right.
All right. So we still have the hot dogs here. Where are we going to pack these?
These are considered ready to eat, so we can go ahead and put them in this container because there will be no cross-contamination with the already ready-to-eat foods.
Okay, great. And you're putting lots of ice in there, and I know that we had some cold packs in there. So what about, what about these coolers and keeping them cold?
We want to ensure that there's plenty of ice and freezer packs in there to make sure that, once again, it's 41 degrees refrigerator temperature to make sure all of our foods are still safe to eat when we're in the hot sun.
Okay, so really then one thing that would say to me is like, don't try to put too much in one cooler, right? Because you need to have plenty of room for your ice packs and your ice if you're going to have those coolers be at refrigerator temperature.
Right.
Yeah, great. So, okay. I know that when we were preparing for this, we talked about a few other things, and one of them was like, how long is it safe to leave food out when you are, at an event?
Right. 2 hours max, or in the case of an Iowa summer, when it's 90 degrees outside, we want to ensure that it's only 1 hour just to be safe.
So I guess then part of what she's saying is in that planning ahead, you want to think about what quantity are you actually going to set out. Let's say you're at a picnic or at a family reunion, potluck, or whatever it is. What quantity are you going to set out? Because if it's 90 degrees and after an hour we're saying you need to toss it. So probably don't set out your entire 2-gallon bowl of potato salad, right? Just put a smaller quantity out, and then you can always add to that.
Right.
Okay, great. Let's see, I noticed that you've got a food thermometer there.
Right. This is important when you're grilling your meats to ensure that you can get that correct temperature for everyone to be safe to eat that food.
So in other words, looking at it is not good enough?
No.
All right, and is there anything else that we want to talk about with food safety in summer?
Maybe having your beverages in their own separate cooler as well, because everyone knows when it's hot you want something to drink. So you're going to be in that cooler more often, opening it, increasing that temperature of that cooler. So we want to keep those separate from the foods.
That totally makes sense, and I have to tell you, when you chatted with me about that yesterday, I hadn't even fully thought about that, so that totally makes sense. All right, so if anyone has other questions about summer food safety, of course you can contact any of your local county Iowa State University Extension and Outreach offices. You can go to our websites, and we have a lot of information about food safety in general, and in particular about summer food safety. So please let us know if you have questions.